So why don't we get started, Chris?
No worries.
I hope it's a little cooler there today than the last time I was there.
Yeah, it's a bit cooler, so it's been a little bit more pleasant in the office. It's all good.
Excellent. Okay, so everybody, I'd just like to thank everybody for attending, and most importantly, I'd like to thank Chris
No worries.
for taking his time out of the day to have a quick chat with us. Chris, you and I, we've been working together for a little over 12 months now.
Yes. Yep.
And Chris has got a great business in Bayswater called Kurv Living. I think your original name, what was your original name of your business?
The original name was Joinery.
Yep.
And a little bit of explanation around that. It was spelled Cocina. It was Spanish for kitchen, and that got turfed pretty quick. So people just couldn't relate to it. So we rebranded pretty quick and came up with this.
Just as a side note, I've always loved the name Kurv Living, and not so much Kurv on its own, but you've tied Kurv into what your customers are going to be feeling. You know, you're living in what you're producing. So I think it's a really, really good mix of branding, and coming up with a name.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you run a business in Bayswater. Chris, maybe just tell us a little bit about your business and where you've come in the last little while.
Yeah. So we're a small business, primarily all domestic work, mid to high end architectural. So servicing builders. We don't do a lot of private clients, sort of off the street clients, unless it's a referral. But yeah, primarily we're all architectural, architects, designers, builders.
So high end.
Yeah.
Joinery.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, when I first met you, you were actually doing all the drawing yourself, weren't you? Your desk had all your hand drawings on paper on your desk. So you were, you were actually hand drawing everything and doing all your cutlass by hand.
Yep. So, I mean, that's probably a bit of my background as well, coming from, if you look at some positives and negatives of where I came from, sort of more old school, very small factories, which was great from a trade sense. I got to learn my trade and all aspects of it. But on the flip side, when it came to getting my foot in the door and going into business, some of those, there was no skill set. Let's put it that way. So, bit of an old school way of doing it. But as I said, from a trade point of view, great. But from a business point of view, not so
great. Didn't get things happening pretty quick.
Yes.
So I remember we met, and I was always impressed with your ability to draw. But we definitely had some work to do in the business, didn't we? So maybe talk a little bit about where you were 12 months ago and what you were sort of, what you were actually struggling with at that point.
Yeah, I mean, so 12 months ago when I first got in contact with yourself, work was never really an issue. We were sort of starting to get our foot in the door with that sort of high end work. As I said, we'd rebranded. We had the website up and running, so we invested a little bit of money in that.
Yep.
And that was really good. Had a lot of good feedback, and even to the point on our Instagram page. But was financially was just spinning the wheels basically. Had a fair idea of what was wrong, or there was plenty of things wrong. But I mean, when you're cash poor and the cash flow is limited, it's sort of, you struggle to make decisions, or you're scared to make decisions when you feel that another wrong move could be catastrophic, basically.
Yeah, one more slip backwards.
Yeah,
and that's kind of it, right? So, and we were kind of talking about this earlier today, where a lot of people get into this sort of afraid or fear to make a decision, or a fear to take a risk.
Yeah.
You were probably experiencing a bit of that, weren't you? Because, someone comes in front of you and says, look, if you pay me, X amount of money, we're going to solve all your problems. You kind of go bullshit, don't you? Because you've got too many problems.
Yeah. But in the end, it was a fairly, when we're talking sort of our relationship, it was a pretty easy decision for me.
Yeah.
Really. But as you said, I mean, the worst thing you could do is do nothing, basically.
Yeah.
And it was just, we just need a bit of a steer in the right direction, and when it comes to business, sometimes it's a good saying, just check your ego at the door, and it's
Yeah.
sometimes you've got to put your hand up and say, look, we need help. It's I'm limited with my knowledge, and as I said, I know a lot of guys on here is probably the same thing. They're great cabinet makers, and really good at their trade, and that's what drives them to go into business for themselves, because they want to accommodate their client and produce a good product. That's what I wanted to do, and I had a bit of a passion for it. But there's so much more to it.
And so we sort of got together and we sort of did a bit of an analysis of your business in the early days, as usually happens. What were some of the big discoveries for you that you weren't expecting?
I mean, the quoting system, well, probably the biggest discovery was probably just how much money I was probably leaving on the table.
Oh, yes.
When we went through our quoting system, probably one of the biggest things was probably when we broke down, and this was a little bit after. So once we steadied the ship with our pricing, probably when we identified our manufacturing process was probably one of the big things that highlighted just how much time we're spending on things that we maybe shouldn't be.
So would you say that you discovered really that because just for everybody's sake, Chris doesn't actually have a CNC machine. There's really no automation in your business at this stage, is there, Chris?
That's right. Yep.
And when we first started working together, you didn't have like a bookkeeper. You weren't outsourcing anything. You were doing all the drawings. We had a team that was questionable, and now you've got a great shop foreman, and you've got two great people working under him in the factory.
Yeah.
So you had some hesitation, right, to outsource some of the stuff because it felt like it was going to be a further cost burden to the company. But you also expanded your premises, didn't you? Over the last 12 months, you doubled in size. And
that's it. So that's what we did. And as I said to you before, when we first got in contact, if you had said to me in 4 to 6 months, you're gonna have a detailer, bookkeeper. We're going to outsource your installs. We're going to take over the factory next door. I would have just said, I can't afford it. That's not going to happen. But it's the old saying: in order to scale, you've got to move out the way and outsource to.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the highlights. For me was I was doing. Before we had a couple of other guys that were on board so while we're trying to find a good factory foreman, I was sort of doing the project management, I was doing the drawings, I was doing the quoting, I was trying to do a few of the installs. So the flow from the office to the factory would times I'd be the big roadblock. So to get that flow, I just sort of had to get out of the way. But and that was the thing. I suppose everyone's the same. It's that fear of losing control. But at the end of the day, it's even to me now going on site, I used to love it, but now I don't, because it's just you're always thinking of what else should I be doing.
Yeah.
And the guys are more productive on the tools than me now, because it's just there's just too many interruptions through the day. So would
you say, or would you sort of feel like the business has become your product more than the product you're producing now?
Sorry, I missed that.
Do you sort of feel like your business has become your product rather than the product you're producing?
Yeah.
That's kind of the transition, right? Is we need to get into being proud of your business, because it needs to be successful, and your workers, the people that are building, they need to be proud of the product. Not to say you don't as well, but your focus really needs to be on the business, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All
And
right. So
it's a transitional thing. It's just, and it's hard to make that transition from, again, for me, like I've been in business for just a bit over 4 years now, and always been on the tools. So making that transition into the office and working on, for me, at times working on the business felt like I wasn't productive.
yeah.
And even now, I still feel like that now. Like I'm in the office 90% of the time, and I could work 12 hours in the office, but and the boys are going hard out in the factory floor. It
Yeah.
still feels I've still got that pull to being out in the factory, but
It's a guilt thing, isn't it? I remember that when I had my business,
yeah.
getting off the floor and into the office,
Yeah.
I would often have this massive guilt that I wasn't physically doing anything to help them, right? But
Absolutely.
then when I'd get back onto the tools, everything would kind of fall apart in the office.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
It's true. You've got to manage that sort of guilt factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were the big breakthroughs for you? Like we've worked together for 12 months and you've made some pretty outstanding progress. What was sort of the big breakthrough for you? Would you say that the pricing, like when we started looking at your pricing system,
yeah,
and it took a while for this to take effect because you had already won jobs that was maybe 4 or 5 months that you would have to live with, right? Because you'd won them using the old pricing method.
That's right. Yeah.
And it took a lot of trust and a lot of trust that the new pricing method was going to work better.
Yeah.
But, would you say that so the new, being able to price more profitably, was that a major breakthrough for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and people are probably saying, oh, well, wouldn't you know that your pricing's wrong? And I guess there was times before we engaged that, okay, I really need to put my prices up.
Yeah.
It was those, the sometimes feedback, and we never angle ourselves to be the cheapest, but there was times when we were getting feedback that we were coming in $20,000-$30,000 dearer over $100,000, $120,000 job. And I'm like, phew. So that's what held me back from putting the prices up because of that feedback. Because I'm like, well, if I'm already $20,000 to $30,000 dearer now, if I put my prices up, am I going to run the risk of losing more work or losing work? But it hasn't been the case at all.
So those jobs that you felt that you were overpriced on, why do you think your pricing appeared to be too expensive? Is it because everybody else is just simply too cheap?
But possibly, yeah. And I used to question, I'm like, how are these guys doing it for this price?
There is there is a pretty high attrition rate in this industry, isn't there? Undercutting, and then 2 years and out seems to be the cowboy lifespan, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So we got your pricing system up. We don't want to talk too much about details of the previous years, but how much of a difference do you think the pricing system has made in your business? If we were to sort of talk about numbers, like what we'd sort of looked at net profit quite often, right? And within, I would say 9 months, we were seeing some pretty substantial differences on your P&L.
Yeah.
So percentage-wise, where were you, just generally speaking, and where are you at right now as far as your feeling of the business?
The feeling of the business is great. Outside of the pricing, which was the main factor of the turnaround, but to have our foreman now, Dave, who's come on board, and he's just been fantastic. So we struck it lucky with him. He's been with us for 18 months, and he was just exactly what we're looking for. So once he's on board, it's just the factory's here, so I don't have to worry about what's going on. We communicate regularly, but I just know it's going to get done. And to have someone that rocks up to work and understands the business angle and cares about his work and my clients and our clients, it's really important. It's great. So
sometimes you got to go through a few of those types of people to get the right one, don't you?
That's right.
Yeah. And we've posted a net profit turnaround in your business of about 20%. That's actually pretty accurate, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I mean that's going from a negative to a positive, but yeah, it would be about. I mean, we're probably about five to anywhere between 5 and 8% at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're sort of negative sort of 15 there.
Yeah.
I think
So
we've sort of worked out.
and if everything goes well by the end of this year, you're going to be in the 20, a 20% turnaround. I mean, definitely you're going to be above 10%.
Yeah.
It's quite outstanding, really, because most businesses that are in a negative, we just struggle to get them into a break-even point within a year. So, so when we did a video with you a little while ago, you talked about your team, and you also talked about the flow in your factory. Can you talk a little bit about that? How you worked in your factory, even though you don't have automation? And just to throw this into the mix, this is the year for automation, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I can't wait. So
imagine doing great now. Imagine we put automation into your business now. You're going to 20% profit.
Yeah,
well, you actually doubled your factory space. So what did you do in your factory that helped with flow of your manufacturing?
Yeah, so before we took over the second factory, and we're lucky enough for everyone listening that we took over the factory next door. So we were looking at moving. We had a 230 square meter factory, which sort of got me out of trouble for 3 years. But doing full projects that are $80,000 to $100,000 worth of joinery, it was hard work being in there. But I knew that was always going to be the case. Once we got the bigger one, you just sort of step back and go, oh, how did we do that? So, I mean, you saw it. Not that it was a mess. We're always really tidy, and that's one big thing that we are. We're pretty organised with the factory, but it was just a lot of double handling to get things set up. We do set up on the floor, so yeah. Again, we don't have a CNC. So once we got the new factory, we got another drill press. Comes off the edge bander. We drill all our shelf holes. Basically one factory is for machining, and then it goes in, and then it's fabrication in the next factory. So
yeah, and it's created a really nice flow from one to the other. I think you're kind of a good example. I'm often heard to say you've got too much space, but I think it is possible to have too little. And I think that's kind of where you're at, because it was just so clogged up, right? When you were doing it. It's not like your work is basic. Like, you've got some pretty detailed stuff that needs space.
Yeah.
So you increase your factory size. When I first met you, you had a team of 3. Now you have a team of 3.
Yeah. But
your team is a lot more specialized in their roles, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are and they aren't. Well, yeah, I suppose we've identified who's good at doing certain tasks. We try and mix it up a little bit, but it just helps with that flow. So who takes it off the edge bander, who sets it up for the drilling? We do a lot of finger pull stuff. So yeah, with Dave sort of doing the more intricate stuff, which is our foreman, and he does all the machining.
Yep.
So, but again, once we, when we sort of broke down our manufacturing process, and that CNC just can't come quick enough at the moment. So, that's going to eliminate a lot of stuff that we're currently doing manually. So,
well, I think we think we're probably going to speed you up by at least 50%.
Yeah, which
is pretty massive, and you're doing pretty well now anyway.
Yeah,
cool. So, what in 2019, this year, you've increased your factory size, which has increased your cost. Your labor cost probably hasn't changed that much, but you have outsourced bookkeeping. You've outsourced drawing. So you really kind of have increased your team. Plus, you've got a coach on board who is not free. But yet you've managed to turn from, let's say, a questionable profit position into a really healthy business. So your costs have gone up dramatically. And yet still this year, we're looking at adding your CNC, which is going to add more cost to your business. And we have 100% confidence that that's going to be the right thing to do, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And the CNC is going to take such a massive amount of labor out of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Awesome. So what do you think is going to be the key to success here in 2019? What do you, as a business owner, what do you need to focus on to keep ahead of things?
I think automation. I think is just. I mean, the automation in the company is going to not just also in the factory, but also in the office, in the front office as well. Just a bit more intel in the project management side of things. Just tracking jobs easier, where there's better communication between the office and Dave, the foreman. So we'd all love to be perfect and all jobs are 100% and there's no issues, but at the end of the day there is, and particularly when we're sort of manually sort of tracking stuff, that it could be a lot easier. So, and that's going to relate back to our customer as well, customer satisfaction and
yeah. You said something to me earlier where you were talking about 12 months ago, or maybe even longer, you couldn't have imagined outsourcing your installation work. How do you feel about that now, about your manufacturing team and your installation team? This is a topic that comes up quite a bit.
Definitely. So we only sort of started outsourcing our installs so the second half of last year.
Yep.
It didn't go that well in the end, but so we're in the process of trying to find some more installers. But it gave us a really good look at how our business operates, not having to do the manufacturing and the install.
Yep.
I mean, that in itself, that increased our capacity by quite a bit. So it just, the flow in the factory was good, and we increased, we pretty much turned over, without sort of getting spot on numbers, but we pretty much did in 6 months. We turned over what we'd pretty much done for the previous 12 months in 6 months. So the flow in the factory was really good, and that was without doing sort of minimal overtime as well. So to have the contract installs was really good, but we really just sort of needed to knock down some good ones. So we had a few issues, having to sort of go back and finish a few things off, but it was a good look at how it would operate with some installers on board.
Yeah, the elephant in the room is kind of that, isn't it? If you pull your team out of your factory isn't producing, put them on site.
Yeah.
Installing, yeah, probably. But your investment is in your factory, right? So that's what has to start paying off. So this 50% increase in production in your factory is it's probably where you should have been to begin with, right? Because
that's right. Yeah.
Pulling people out of the factory.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So whether you're outsourcing install or whether you're not, you're now sort of on board with having two teams.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think that's been really helpful. I just see some questions here. So Shannon says, oh, wow, I am the new Chris, exactly the same. Anybody has any questions for Chris, please chuck them up and I will forward them on. Chris, I really appreciate you doing this. It's been, I've really enjoyed working with you, mainly because you actually implement, and we've talked about this before, that it's never really about what I do. It's always about what you do.
Yep.
And you really get things done. It's a good example of what happens when you roll up your sleeves and, do what you can. Obviously, you got to run a business, so things have to keep going. But I wonder if anybody else has got any other questions for Chris. It's been really insightful, Chris. You've said some things that I haven't heard you say before. So
that's all right. Hopefully someone can get a little bit of insight out of it, or we can help someone else out.
Yep. Someone says, what kind of panel saw do you have?
Unfortunately, it's a Rhino. When I first bought the factory 4 years ago, again, when you start out, you're not looking for spending $300,000 on machinery. So we bought some cheap Chinese stuff. The panel saws got us out of trouble. The edge bander lasted us for about 12 months, and we upgraded. And that was another thing. We upgraded to a home mag, and that was the best thing we ever did. It's been amazing, that one. So
Yeah, Chris, Shannon's asked, what was the hardest part for you about the change? That's kind of a tough one, but maybe.
I mean, the hardest part, it's just losing control, like thinking you're going to lose control of when you're sort of trying to delegate and bring outsourcing. That's probably the hardest thing. And contract installers was a hard thing for me to grapple with. And I know, man, you and I sort of spoke about it, Bruce, but sometimes you just, at the end of the day, you think that your business does everything the best, but there's guys out there that are really good installers. It may take 1, 2, 3 goes at it, and we're in the process of going at our second go at it. So as long as it's not a complete disaster, and you sort of project manage it to a certain extent, there's ways around it. So just delegating was probably one of the hardest things to take that step.
Just prying stuff into your hands.
That's right. Yeah.
Mitchell asked, what strategies are you using to try and find decent contract installers? It's a great question.
Just a fishing rod at the moment, just trying to put something out there. It's we don't sort of have, it's really hard. Sort of trying to use Bruce, to be honest with you, but we're sort of in the process, whether we maybe put something on Instagram, do we run an ad on Seek? That seems to be the hardest part. I mean, finding good guys, I mean, everyone who's in business, or finding good guys, particularly in our industry at the moment, is tough. And we're actually just run a job ad for another guy in the factory, and I under no illusions it's going to take us probably 2 to 3 months to find that guy, because it's hard to find him. So so in answer to that question, sorry, there is no sort of strategic.
No magic bullet, is it?
No.
It's kind of the same with employees, isn't it? It doesn't really matter whether you hire a contract installer or you hire an employee. No matter what happens, it's someone new into your business that has to do things your way.
Yeah.
I kind of think that one of the best things we've done with you, I mean, there's heaps, but one of the great things is you're starting to focus on your process.
Yeah.
Once you know what your process is, it's so much easier to get somebody else, on board. One of the hardest things bringing new people in, they could do great work, but if they don't follow your process, it could appear to you to be terrible at what they do.
Yeah.
So I got another question here from Richard. Richard's asking, your quoting system now, has that become a swifter process? So the quoting system that you're using now, is it flow better than it did before?
No, that's probably not the answer you want to hear, but no, it's probably more thorough, to be honest with you. Again, it's a basic. We just use a spreadsheet with our markup on all materials. So we segregate the materials from our labour costs. We've got markups of material plus our profit margin, and profit margin also goes on top of the labour. So before I was using sort of linear meter rates, I still, so it was it's not as swift. We're a little bit more magnified in that. So, and particularly with what we do, like, I mean, if anyone else is on here does architectural, they've probably had a crack at it. It might be, it might be a 70-page project with finishing schedules and brass, and we've just done one where it's brass and concrete, and you've got to go through it, and you've got to get prices off everyone. So it's a pretty, a quote might take you a day to 2 days, and then writing it up on top of that. So no, it's not swifter, but we know I'd rather take a little bit longer knowing that it's right. And now I'd rather lose a job knowing that we're priced right than getting a job and it's not the right price. So,
I think that's an important point too, is that the quoting process can be really, really swift, but if it isn't guaranteed to make profit, you're swiftly going broke.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, because at the end of the day, if we can increase, your conversion process, like how many jobs you're winning, the information in the quote, like you've got now to order the jobs, is probably way easier than it was before, right? If you're using linear meter, you don't know all the details in the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so in a way, it may have become swifter when you add 2 or 3 of the process steps together.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to doing our materials, ordering our materials, it's all there in the list. So
yeah, and plus you should know how long it should take you to do the job. So now we can actually tighten up your time frames, which is where why that's probably where, would you agree, Chris? That's where a lot of the time was being blown out anyway, or the cost in your quoting was maybe not really knowing how much labor to allow.
Yeah. Originally it was, but now it's sort of all broken down. Yeah, and I mean, and the good thing about that too, if you really want the job, you can sort of see the areas where, if we're talking a couple of grand, not that it's really happened with us, where they try and want you to sharpen the pencil, but that is an area where you can sort of easily go back and sort of, okay, well, we can maybe just tweak it a little bit here. And what I find is, which is, the most annoying part of what we do is the repricing. So, it goes to tender. Architects always come in over budget 90% of the time. So, you're going to reprice it.
Yeah.
So the repricing is much easier, and you can give them a bit of feedback too on certain areas where we think that, okay, maybe you could just drop this and have an alternative scenario for them to try and get the price down. So, yeah.
And it's really interesting. I thought the whole thing around quoting, now you know that if you put a line item in it that's a pain in the ass factor line item, it like separated from everything else, $1,500.
Yeah.
If they say, well, can you sharpen your pencil? You go, sure. How about if I take $1,500 off the price? We call it good.
Yeah.
And that's the price you should have got anyway.
Yeah.
Craig's actually asked a question. What design and quoting software are you using?
Where there is the design program that we're using is SketchUp. Again, we outsource that. So we're currently in, and that's where we want to get to. So ideally, hopefully in 12 months' time, and we're doing another hot seat, I'd be happy to jump on and see where my progress is in 12 months. That's hopefully we can get a system, whether we're sort of looking at cabinet vision. That would be great to sort of have that. Again, that's going to be a bit more quality control around the quoting, is if we can get that and do the quoting off that, that would be perfect. But we're using, our drawing program is SketchUp. Again, I don't use it myself, but our detailer does it for us, and it's sort of getting us out of trouble, and I just don't have to do it. So it allows me to do other stuff.
And you do have a version of it, so it'll just be an upgrade to
that's it. Yeah. And that's where, so I started using Cabinet Vision, and I bought the Essential package. But I quickly got stuck on that because we couldn't do a lot of the things on it that we wanted it to do, because we are doing a lot of detail stuff, and it just can't do it. So
I think I know Cabinet Vision quite well, and I think what actually happens is if you don't have a high enough degree of knowledge of how to get the software to do it, it does feel like it can't.
Yeah.
There are some people that are Cabinet Vision geniuses that I've seen, and it's amazing what once you know how to make it work, there's almost nothing it can't do, really.
Yeah.
That's true with most softwares. If you're really good at it, you can usually work around anything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's quite a few questions came in. That's good. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments for Chris? If not, it's about 30 minutes. Again, Chris, congratulations on the journey, and I look forward to continuing to watch and help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like everybody's wrapped up. So Shannon says, thanks, Chris. Very helpful. That's Shannon O'Connell.
No worries.
So we've still got 6 people on. Craig says, thanks.
No problem.
Hopefully everybody's got something out from that. And if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about what Chris has done, again, you're in the hub. Just jump in the hub and ask questions. Chris, you're in the hub too, aren't you? So you monitor.
Yep, we're in there.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Chris.
No worries.
We'll chat to you soon.
Will do.
Everybody else, have a great night. It's my birthday, so I'm going to have birthday cake.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, 35 again.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Have a great night.
See you, Bruce. Enjoy.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.